More than a year ago, we talked about the upcoming Hyundai Genesis Hypercar project with a Pippo engine, when many didn't believe it was really happening. In the meantime, it has not only been confirmed, the project was also presented at the New York International Auto Show. Key members were announced, and even the first shakedown happened. So let's take a closer look at the Genesis Hypercar project. As expected, this will be a cheaper LMDH car using an Oreca chassis just like Alpine and Acura, and the Pippo motor engine Glickenhaus used before for their LMH car. If you want to know the difference between LMH and LMDH cars, check out my other video with the link below. It makes sense to use the super successful LMP2 manufacturer Oreca, who also partners with Alpine and Acura. A French chassis manufacturer with a French engine supplier sounds like a good choice as well, so there are no communication problems between countries or even continents with different time zones, etc. The other French chassis manufacturer Ligier wasn't so successful with their Lamborghini project, which was just terminated, and we analyzed it in depth on this channel. So Oreca is a good choice, and Pippo Moteur is building engines for Hyundai's WRC cars for 10 years already. When Glickenhaus needed a suitable engine for their LMH hypercar, they basically put two 1.6-liter 4-cylinder turbo engines together to a 3.5-liter V8 biturbo. This particular engine has an interesting history, which has to do with Aston Martin's powerful V12 engine and them pulling out after changing the rules, which left Glickenhaus with a too large engine and no Alfa Romeo deal. Check out my other video to learn all about that. But because it was significantly detuned, it was very reliable. And now it's in an upgraded version with now 3.2-liter in the new Genesis GMR 001. And Genesis takes this seriously. They're not just joining to fill the grid, they want to be successful. They hired former Alpine F1 team boss Cyril Abiteboul. Technical director is François Sever-Desmaisons, who was technical director at VW's WRC program, Hyundai WRC, and Williams F1 before. Sporting director is Gabriele Tacquini, former F1 driver and touring car champion. Chief engineer is Justin Taylor, who previously worked as race engineer for Cadillac and Ferrari and has experience in working with Oreca. Confirmed drivers are 3-time Le Mans winner and LMP1 expert André Lotterer and Sebring winner Pipo Derani. Genesis wants to join WEC in 2026 and IMSA in 27. In WEC, the French team IDEC Sport Racing will operate the cars for Genesis, who are very experienced with the Oreca chassis. And speaking French to the ACO in Le Mans is a huge advantage, as we know from Audi days. The general bodywork design was done by no other than Luc Donkerwolke, who was responsible for a number of familiar cars and now works for Genesis. He describes the car as driving sculpture. If we take a closer look at the car itself, we can see a high front diffuser design with a horizontal blade, like we know it from Acura and Alpine. The possible wake in the center is being filled with air from below. Other familiar things we see here are the supported double dive planes, the downwards pointing roof inlet, and the door with the large, high cockpit outlet to let air flow around the driver's helmet. The side mirrors are integrated into the fenders and the driver sits on the left-hand side. Another familiar feature is the additional driver cooling duct on the left. Two large intakes in the upper surface of the diffuser feed the front brakes and are easy to blank. The upper front diffuser surface covers the front suspension and stops before the side pod inlets. So that is very similar to the Acura and not like the Alpine with its closed upper surface. There is a decent gap to release air from the front diffuser, and the blades at the sides can be used to adjust downforce. Rear brake cooling ducts have been moved from the high pressure area of the rear fenders to the side. There are no more louvres on top of the side pod like the Acura, but the Acura has a much smaller engine, which means it needs more boost for the same power and hence more intercooling. We can see these louvres at the Alpine as well, with a slightly bigger engine than the Genesis. So in terms of cooling, it looks like they are pushing the limits a bit. Interesting and possibly Ferrari inspired is the rear end of the car. Their shark fin tip vortex is being dragged underneath the rear wing, so it doesn't hit the wing and reduces downforce suddenly in corners. And Genesis uses a horizontal light bar to straighten the airflow at the back and hence support the rear wing above. That way you can drive more aggressive angles without separation. The rear wing end plates are bent outboard for more extraction and faster flow underneath the wing and hence more downforce, so also here they don't play around. At the rear end we note the Hypercar typical long tail, here with a gurney on top. Note that this is not the upper side of the bodywork, this is the upper light bar. And if we look at the rear, we are almost reminded back to LMP1 times with a super low bodywork and very small cooling outlet compared to other hypercars, which keep the same bodywork for all tracks and conditions. So usually hypercar manufacturers play it safe, but Genesis again seems to push the limit. It seems like they are using the weight behind the rear wheels to extract more hot air from the engine bay, which allows them to have a lower bodywork in the center for less drag and more downforce, just like years ago in LMP1. So Genesis doesn't come to play, they want to succeed. They put together big names with lots of experience, chose very successful partners for chassis, engine and operating team, all in France, and because they already have lots of data of their drivetrain, they could be aggressive in cooling design. But we already know that, as a new car, they will get a pretty tough BOP rating first, and let's see where they go from there. How do you like the Genesis LMDH project? Let me know in the comments below and check out my other videos for more.